Want a heads up to see clearly what is coming down the road? The next few minutes may prevent you from being misdirected by the upcoming so-called March for Science. Grab a coffee, sit down, listen to what a scientist has to say about this. Sal Giardina, mechanical engineer, professional geologist, and former Boeing aircraft pilot instructor.
Hey, greetings. Starting on April 22nd, which is Earth Day, a series of protest marches are being scheduled around the nation. They are being billed as initiated by scientists. No doubt that some scientists will be involved, but I don't want you to be misled by this massive propaganda campaign. Now, I'm sure you are quite busy and only have a few minutes to listen to me, but I'll be brief, but also I'll probably be quite blunt. What you should be aware of is this movement is nothing more than a campaign by progressive left-wing socialists. Its goal is solely to discredit President Trump and his administration from propelling our nation to a higher level of security and economic stability. Of course, this progress would be counter to the interests of the socialists, who have now been retarded by your vote and their quest for a globally dominated world order. The March for Science website claims to promote science by advocating open-mindedness. Let me translate that for you. This open-mindedness obviously does not apply to anyone, including scientists like myself, who reject the following unsupported claims. Number one, the unsupported claim of significant climate change. Number two, the atheistic view of the naturalistic, spontaneous origin of life. And number three, the unsupported claim of the evolutionary progression of life over millions of years. Folks, their agenda can only lead down a one-way road where any and all lawless behavior is acceptable. Look around. Our culture is already permeated with this moral relativism. Its fruit is now anarchy in the streets, and it is a catalyst for the breakdown of society. This is just what the so-called progressives want, because it opens the door for an excuse for complete government control of its citizens. Make no mistake, the March for Science is nothing more than a political movement to be directed at the Trump administration under the ruse that the president and his advisors are anti-science. Recognize this for what it is, merely a propaganda tool to promote the left-wing anti-Christian agenda. Do not fall for the straw man which they intend to set up next month. These socialists are desperately trying to characterize men of biblical principles and integrity as having a lack of respect and even a lack of knowledge of science and its ramifications to society. There's nothing new here. This old canard has been echoed in our public education system for decades. It is totally ridiculous. Want an injection of reality? Nearly all the major disciplines of science are started by Bible-believing scientists. This is just a partial list of Bible-believing scientists who are instrumental in the basic fundamental disciplines of science today. It's a very partial list. There are actually thousands of scientists today who are creationists and actively engaged in scientific research. I bet you were never exposed to this information during your years of indoctrination. Excuse me, I mean years of public education. The truth is that thousands of scientists are streaming real research data on the worldwide information highway. Our current state of knowledge has already exposed the false news of the anti-God theories of biologic evolution. God has raised up many creation organizations like New Creation Ministries to demonstrate that Darwinian evolution of life is no longer supported by the facts of science. This anti-God belief leads to a dead end for a free society due to the inevitable breakdown of rational behavior. Isn't this what we are now experiencing? Just turn on the news every night. After all, if God is not our creator, then anything and everything is permissible. But you say, Mr. Giardina, everyone knows that life has evolved from microorganisms over millions of years. Oh, really? Take a look at the visual deception of the geologic column. You are told that the basement rocks below the fossil-bearing sedimentary layers, shown down here, here are the fossil-bearing sedimentary layers. What's called the basement rock represents so-called 4 billion years of Earth history. This is 82% of the supposed Earth history, but it only contains single-cell bacteria, cyanobacteria, which are the same as what we have today. There's no evolution, nada, none, zero evolution for the so-called over 3 billion years of Earth history. These basement rocks were eroded. If you go in the field, we can see that these basement rocks have an erosion surface that was literally planed off worldwide by high-energy flowing waters. Well, imagine that. Then we find sitting on top of this erosion contact are the water-lane deposited sedimentary rocks shown right here. Water-lane sedimentary rocks, which encompass the entire array of multicellular organisms in such profusion that they are acknowledged by all paleontologists as the Cambrian explosion of life. Well, is there anything else I wasn't aware of, you say? Well, in addition, you have been assured that the fossil record of multicellular organisms includes you and me, has accumulated over 500 million years. Another not so. Examination of the rock strata and over 250 million recovered fossils do not support this contention any longer. Exquisite preservation along with the occurrence of land and marine dwelling animals they're buried together in the same geologic strata, and this can only be adequately explained by rapid catastrophic worldwide watery inundation. You're not going to find this slide either in school textbooks. Why is that? This slide right here. It opens a Pandora's box, which has been exposing the fallacy of millions of years. Streaming in are numerous published discoveries of original soft, pliable tissues. Just a partial, very partial list illustrated here. These are discoveries of these tissues have been found throughout the so-called 500 million years of the sedimentary geologic column. These soft tissues consist of proteins and even DNA in fossils throughout the column. These peer-reviewed professional reports negate the idea that the fossil-bearing strata were deposited over hundreds of millions of years. Most of these discoveries are being published by steadfast evolutionary-oriented scientists, not just creation scientists. The entire Darwinian monolith of misinformation is getting ready to crumble. The only real reason, folks, for remaining a Darwinist is refusal to acknowledge God's revealed word, which provides a much better explanation of how a mixture of land-dwelling and marine organisms could be entombed worldwide in the same layers. Take a look at this video now. It's by a well-known and respected microscopist, Mark H. Armitage, who has a BS in education and an MS in biology.
I believe we've hit a nerve, folks. I believe with the soft tissue and dinosaur bones, we have hit a nerve, particularly with the old Earth, long age, people committed to millions and millions of years, because the average person on the street reacts viscerally to this. People get it. When you tell people there's soft tissue and dinosaur bones, soft, stretchy, fibrillary tissues, and some of the beautiful soft cells that I've shown many, many pictures of, people react instantly to that, and they get it. They realize that's got to be young. I mean, there's virtually no explanation necessary. And so by soft fibrillary stretchy tissues, I mean these tissues that came out of the very center of the horn bone. Look at how this is like a piece of taffy. I can stretch it in both axes, and it's so resilient it just bounces back to its original conformation. So how can this be 68, 70 plus million years and still retain this kind of elasticity? Number one. Number two, I thin section these things, and they're chock full of osteocytes, the little cells that populate bone. And so how can these have these kind of structures in them and be that old? And so here are some of these osteocytes. You can see they're beautiful cells, and they have these little thread feet that come off, these little filopodia that are still completely intact, and they're nanometers in size. So how can this kind of preservation be there on cells that are 65, 68, 70 million years old? It's impossible.
Scripture stands as a source of absolute truth and guidance for all people who want to live in peaceful, fruitful coexistence on this planet. That this march is fundamentally a celebration of man's attempt to determine truth apart from God. Not much different than the motives at the Tower of Babel. Thank God for scientists who have given us wonderful technology, but let's face it, science does not have all the answers to life's basic relationships. What we are experiencing across the USA right now as lawless riots, they're called protest, is only one small step from the chaos which has engulfed much of Europe right now. Now, there is good news. The good news is that God has raised up in this hour many creation science ministries which are actively reversing the misguided direction of multitudes in our present culture. All you have to do is invite them to your church, youth group, or homeschool gatherings. Well, I guess I said enough for now. Thanks for watching this video. Check out our multimedia trailers. Share this video and contact us for a presentation to reclaim the integrity of God's eternal word. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord.